Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic.
What's the worst case of someone misunderstanding the plot of a movie you've ever seen? My wife is a big history buff, especially US history. She also doesn't like campy vampire, zombie, monster movies. I made her watch Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. 10 minutes into the movie she turned to me and said, "I don't think this actually happened." Please tell me you had a witty response, because I feel I'd just look back at her with a slack jaw and blank stare. I honestly don't remember what I said, but once I reminded her it was a vampire movie, we both had a good laugh about it. I watched Lay Miserabl in the theater with my parents. At the very end of the movie my dad whispered, "Wait, Hugh Jackman was the prisoner at the beginning." He had no idea, the whole movie, why Javert had beef with this apparent random character. I couldn't understand why Javert hunted him. He spent 20 years for stealing a loaf of bread. Then some idiot drops $1 on the ground and accuses Jean Valjean of stealing it. I guess he did not show his yellow papers or something. But to hunt a guy for the rest of his and your life for not showing a passport to an official is beyond insane. Then finding out that that person has become a respected and beloved mayor of a town and is like the best guy around, then destroying his new life because he didn't show paperwork after 20 years in prison, is just nuts. But I guess in the end Javert realized, I wasted my life. Part of his parole was to show his paperwork everywhere he went. The second he disappeared he became a fugitive of the law. Javert chased him because to him, the law is immutable and totally moral. JVJ has to be brought in because he's a criminal, and therefore immoral, and it's personal for Javert because he's the one that paroled him. Also he doesn't kill himself because he realized that he wasted his life. He commits suicide because JVJ saves him and proves himself to be a good man. This is totally at odds with Javert's worldview, as he believes being lawful and moral are always the same, so for JVJ to be a moral lawbreaker ruins his beliefs. He can't reconcile it, so he kills himself. That's literally the point of the character. Javert is absolutely devoted to following the law without compromise. No compromises, ever. As far as he's concerned, that is civilization. So by the end, when he accepts that enforcing the law is the wrong thing to do in this situation, what's good for society is incompatible with him. My ex-girlfriend only realized halfway through Schindler's List that Liam Neeson and Ralph Fiennes were different people, which I found so hilarious as the film must have seemed totally different in her mind. So yeah, the hero of a film about the Holocaust being an enthusiastic Nazi casually murdering people and being generally evil. This reminds of a similar post where the op's wife didn't realize Matt Damon and Leo DiCaprio were two different people in The Departed. Does she have face blindness? I'm always mixing up characters because of this. Maybe she does to some degree. We're both married to different people now and live in different countries, and I'm not willing to go out of the way to contact her and ask. Haha. Watched Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers with an uncle. Asked him what he thought afterwards. Seems kind of far-fetched. I watched The Two Towers with my not-yet wife, and she was like, "This movie makes no sense, it starts with a bunch of people running and then, what's happening?" I didn't realize she never saw the first movie. My favorite part about watching the first movie in the theater was at the end when a guy yelled out, "That's it." I guess he didn't realize it was the first of a trilogy and was a little upset at the lack of closure. Me and some friends were watching James Bond Spectre while extremely drunk and got really confused by the repeated and overlapping sections. We were talking about how great the Memento-style use of non-linear time was a great addition to the Bond films, only to realize I had been sitting on the remote and rewinding it all night. I think we were watching it for about 4 hours. Freaked out because I thought I had been watching Spirited Away for 11 hours while robot tripping. When I commented this to my roommate he laughed and said it hasn't even been 11 minutes. The fuck is robot tripping? I love this so much. It was me. I am not a fan of superhero movies, but I liked the X-Men when I was younger. So I thought I would check one out. I downloaded one that featured one of my favorites. I started watching it, they messed his whole backstory up, there weren't any other mutants, basically no action. After about 30 minutes in I realized it wasn't a superhero movie. So anyways, Jake Gyllenhaal was really good in Nightcrawler. This one is my favorite, well done. My mom thought Rogue One had a happy ending because they were hugging in front of a sunset at the end of the movie. I'll bet she loved the feel-good ending of Dr. Strangelove. My mom loved The Prestige. I expressed surprise because it didn't seem like her kind of movie. She considers Jumanji a horror movie. She was surprised at my surprise and asked why I thought she wouldn't like it. I said it was pretty dark with all the jealousy, revenge, betrayal and murder. She was even more surprised and said she didn't pick up on any of that stuff. She just liked the magicians doing their fun tricks. Woman facepalming. I remember someone once saying that Scar from The Lion King isn't evil because he is a lion. Wild animals can't be evil, they're just acting on their nature. Bro kind of forgot the whole anthropomorphic talking animals with human-like thoughts and morals, part 1 guess. It's just in a lion's nature to sing songs about assassination and coup while his hyena underlings goose step like it's going out of style. When I was young I watched the first 15 minutes of Zoolander from the hallway when I was supposed to be in bed. For many years after, I thought people regularly died in freak gasoline accidents. Only if you're really ridiculously good looking, while drinking orange mocha frappuccinos! Exclamation mark. Watching Titanic in a cinema in the West End of Glasgow. Ship hits the iceberg, girl behind me says, or, it's gonna sink. To which her date replied with absolute confidence, N.A., it will nigh. I watched Elvis in the theater and when the paper showed his death, an older woman behind me gasped and sadly whispered, oh no, he died. Earlier when he took a pill from his doctor the same lady gasped, no Elvis don't take that. One would think someone so devoted to Elvis would know the end of this movie. The best is the famous TV guide plot synopsis in 1998 for The Wizard of Oz. Transported to a surreal landscape, a young girl kills the first person she meets and then teams up with 3 strangers to kill again. Well, it's not wrong and I kind of love it. One of my co-workers once said to me that The Wizard of Oz is much better now that it's colorized lol. Did she think they just forgot to colorize the Kansas bits? Someone once told me they thought The Matrix Asterisk was about a guy learning to code and getting really good at VR. I saw the second Matrix movie with a guy who was way outside the pop culture loop and hadn't really heard anything about either movie. He thought the characters entering, leaving the Matrix were being disintegrated, and was at a total loss, thinking the movie was displaying a non-sequential timeline. Similar but the other way round, my dad thought Memento was in chronological order and didn't have a fucking clue what was happening the whole time. When I was a kid and I saw Hunt for Red October and I didn't know the definition of defect. I had no idea what was going on the entire time. There's something incredibly funny about this. Just sitting through the whole movie about people wondering if the ship is going to Wumbo, worrying about the consequences if they Wumbo. Other people searching, arguing if it is actually going to Wumbo, or just pretend to Wumbo. Quote, honestly, one of the great things about watching that movie is that it makes more and more sense each time you watch it. Tom Clancy books are complex and really hard to adapt to screen. The Hunt for Red October is by far the best adaptation, but it is a complex movie and it gets better each time, but it's still fun to watch if you have no idea what's going on. I once listened to a Tom Clancy book on CD. I had the CD player on shuffle, and I never noticed. Even better, it doesn't age in any meaningful way since it was released. In the age of internet and cell phones, the plot doesn't change a bit. The only thing you'd have to replace today is the aircraft aboard the carrier. I knew someone that thought Thanos snapping his fingers just sent a bunch of people back to their home planet. What home planet are humans from that's not Earth? Lol, one of life's great mysteries. This is my favorite one so far. My adult siblings were watching a movie at my mom's house. My mom falls asleep, always. In the movie they were going extract a person from someplace. My young niece asks what extract means. My mom wakes up briefly at that time and says, they are going to pull all his teeth out. So from that point on, everyone was waiting for that to occur. One time my mom fell asleep on the sofa and woke up during SNL or Mad TV. They were doing a skit where it was a news report that the famous sextuplet babies who had been in the news a lot at the time had all fallen down a well. She sat up and was horrified. It took a while before she understood it wasn't real and the babies were fine. Somehow, my dad completely missed that The Princess Bride is a comedy. Inconceivable. It's like going in against a Sicilian when death is on the line. TBF, it's played completely straight. The sincerity is part of its charm. I mean yeah, but it's hardly subtle. The entire premise just flew over his head and made him mad. I guess he thought it was gonna be some Errol Flynn swashbuckling adventure. Closing parenthesis. My dad thought Spinal Tap was a documentary. He couldn't see why they'd been successful. Well, it's one of the first mockumentaries. Is it the first? My sister-in-law asked if The Martian is based on a true story. Bless her heart. I'm reminded of that time Ricky Gervais said when he was in school they watched Animal Farm and were discussing fascism etc. and one other guy said, you lot are ridiculous overthinking it, it was just a nice story about some animals. It's not even a nice story. Some animals are definitely smarter than others. Even if it were just about animals, it's brutal. It's not nice at all. I recall watching it, not in school, and thinking, wow, this is terrible. Those pigs are horrible. Quote, I think a lot of people grow up reading, watching, hearing fairy tales, even the harsh and brutal ones, and fail to grasp that every single one of them was crafted to teach a lesson or express something specific about the culture that told them. My friend being critical of Apollo 13 saying, they just want their Hollywood ending with that finish, WOOSH. Exclamation mark. Well, kind of correct in an inverse way. Not, it has this ending because it is a movie, but, it got made into a movie because it had this ending. They did not make a movie out of Apollo 12 or Apollo 14. But they did make one of Apollo 18 face with peeking eye. Someone on here talked about his friend really hating on District 9. When he asked his friend why, his friend said they're just some disgusting bugs. Who cares if they die? Your friend was totally missing the allegory, but this is a whole attitude people have towards other life in general, or towards anything they happen to find ugly or unpleasant, that really bugs me. That might be the worst example. I think they win. A couple of guys I knew didn't like it because humans would never treat a sentient race like that. Quote, knowing the word sentient but not displaying self-awareness. So close to grasping the point. Weird that they set the story in South Africa.